The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Friends in Recovery podcast, the podcast that is here to help you, a loved one, or a friend get started down the road to recovery. This is the Friends in Recovery podcast, brought to you by the Genesis House. Genesis House, providing a safe, nurturing environment to heal from addiction since 1992. Please be a friend and share our message with a friend on Podbean, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or YouTube. And now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
Hey, welcome everybody to our Friends in Recovery podcast.com, podcasting live from Studio 21 Podcast Cafe in Salem, New Hampshire, with our producer extraordinaire, Ed Sullivan.
What's up, Ed?
And Jersey Ed.
That's me, Ed Chionchio.
Mike Miles, the Podfather.
Yes, you are, Mike. You are the Podfather.
Nice to be here. And we have a guest, I guess, today, Ed?
We do, but I'd like to get some of the business done first.
Take care of your business.
As we always start. I'd like to thank Genesis House, everybody over at Genesis House for providing all this beautiful studio for us, and our producer, Ed. We'd like to thank him, too. To get a hold of us at Genesis House, you can email us at Genesis House. Or just go to our website, genesishouse.net, and you'll see the whole website there. You can get a hold of us one way or the other. If you want to get a hold of us on the show, it's help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com, and that'll go directly to me. And I know Mike likes to get those phone calls all hours of the night and mornings. And then, how can he reach you?
978-746-1717. That's my direct line right here on the old iPhone.
Yeah, anybody looking for help, you can call that. You can
Feel free to call
us
anytime.
Absolutely, 800-737-0933, and that's blinking across the bottom of the screen. That's called Genesis House directly if you have any questions, or if you want to get in as an admit, that's the way to go. Mike, we're always looking for speakers, guest sponsors, whatever alumnus. You want to call it, alumni. So any of you guys who want to get on this show and who wants to, especially alumni, we got our alumni series going again.
That's right.
And we're looking for alumni to come on, either come to the studio or as our next guest is going to be by satellite, like I said last time, a few shows ago, but it's not satellite.
No, it's not.
You can email Skyler N, it's SKYLERN at genesishouse.net, or Melissa H at genesishouse.net. Just let them know that you want to be a speaker. And we are on Facebook Live, doing well. You can get us on YouTube and all your favorite podcast catchers, and make sure you hit the subscribe button, because that's very important. It'll tell you when the next show is coming.
Correct.
We're always live Tuesday at 4 o'clock, just like we are today.
Absolutely.
And with no further ado,
that's it. That's business.
That's business. That is it.
So we have Kristen Wilson. How are you, Kristen? Are you out there somewhere?
She's out there, I think so. Hey,
Can't
Kristen.
see her face. She's been working in treatment field since 1997 in a variety of mental health treatment settings, including inpatient, residential, outpatient, levels of care, and numerous types of addictions, including chemical dependence, process addictions, eating disorders. This is very good. I have a client yesterday who is a heroin addict and has an eating disorder, so maybe we can ask a few questions. Kristen is passionate about the integration of holistic care and treatment, and in addition, Kristen is a certified yoga teacher.
And I know Kristen very personally, too. Her and my wife are very good friends, and sometimes I get dragged along to stuff that they do, and and it's good to see you on a professional level now. So welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me.
Kristen, tell us a little. Mike just went over a little bit of your bio. Just tell us a little bit about maybe how you got in the field, why you're doing this, and kind of what you do, and what led you to the podcast today.
Sure. So originally in undergrad, I wanted to be a doctor. I went and shadowed a medical student when I was in my senior year in college and hated it. Ran across the street to the graduate student office, grabbed every pamphlet off the shelf that they had, found creative arts and psychology, and said, this could be really interesting. So I knew I wanted to help people, and this was a great way for me to do that. So I attended Hahnemann University for graduate school and have been in the field ever since. I worked in a variety of mental health settings, but I've always really believed that true healing happens when people can connect to their passion and to the people that are around them. And so it's something that I've carried with me throughout my professional career and also in my personal life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the mother of a teenage daughter, and Ed, I know you can empathize.
I know that.
Definitely a roller coaster.
I remember when they weren't teenagers and hanging out in dance classes and all that. Good Lord, they're teenagers now. God. So the one key thing you just said, Kristen, is that you got to be passionate about what you do. And that's in every job, and especially in our jobs, Mike. If you're not passionate about this and you don't love what you do, you're not going to help somebody. Am I correct about that, or is that just kind of a...
Absolutely. I mean, you have to be willing to pick up that phone at any given time. And what drives you to do that is not because you're somebody's paying you to do it, but it's because you really want to help that person on the other end of the phone. And that's one of the things that I think we all who share in this outreach sort of role, we are honored to share that space for families and to be that person who is talking to them in a time of crisis.
Absolutely. I can't, and you can, Mike can understand this too. I can't tell you how many countless times you pick up that phone, and obviously they're not going to come to our treatment center or your treatment center, but you have to get them in somewhere. That's our duty to help them out, to get them somewhere. This is about helping people, not... like you said, it's about helping these people get somewhere to better their life. 25 years ago, I made a phone call and I got into a treatment center that was a county-run treatment center. And, I called somebody and they took the time to direct me to that treatment center. And here I am 25 years later. We need more people out there like you doing this. And I'm pretty impressed. You've been around since 1997. That's, you don't even look old enough to be around since 1997.
Really,
so
keep focusing on that number.
We'll stop. Okay. I know Mike had a couple questions, and we're just fascinating all these topics that we can talk about. So Mike picked out his topics, I picked out mine, and we're going to blast them at you now.
Hey, Kristen, how are you?
Hey, Mike.
I have a private practice. I've been in private practice for almost 20 years. I do clinical social work and licensed alcohol drug counseling. I've had a lot of clients. I've seen, I'd say, thousands of young adults, and some success, not as much success as I'd like to have. But I saw Ed had some questions written down here. I really like this one. It kind of fits into what I'm doing right now currently. It says, what warning signs should parents look out for when it comes to mental health and substance use in their teens? And I cannot tell you the multitude of mothers, especially mothers, who ask me questions about, usually their son's behavior. They go from nurturing and the kids, the young boys will do everything they're asked to do until they hit the age of 11 or 12 or 13. Right around in there, they start getting their own independence. So what do you suggest?
What's the warning signs?
So it is fascinating, and I get approached with the question all the time. I kind of have a feeling that something's happening, but I'm not sure. And so what I first say to parents is that your intuition, your guttural instinct is 100% right 100% of the time. So the fact that you're asking the question really speaks to you're noticing something that's different than the normal pattern of behavior in your child or your young adult. Some warning signs that I tell parents to look for is kids who withdraw. They become really quiet. They have a different group of friends. Maybe they had a certain circle of friends that now they're no longer friends with. They leave interests that they were once passionate about. And
that could be sports or...
you see a change in sports if they were involved in student government and then they're not. If they had a vocation and all of a sudden that is deteriorating around them. If their academic grades, if they're enrolled in college or high school, if their grades start to drop. And so those are all some signs that really would kind of be triggering. Also changes in appetite. Mm-hmm. Kids can deal with depression and anxiety in very different ways, and we oftentimes see changes in patterns of sleep as well as eating.
Mm-hmm. Well, great answer. Excuse me.
One thing about Kristen, she works with, and I give you big thumbs up and applause working with kids. I mean, that's something that's extremely hard to do. Adolescent kids and younger adults. I believe that's what you work, the age group you work with, right?
Yes, we take kids ages 12 all the way up to 20.
Okay, and who's we? Tell us a little about who you're working for too.
Sure. So I work for an amazing program called Newport Academy. We are a gender-specific residential treatment program for teenagers and young adults. What I think the program really does well is treats the underlying mental health trauma and attachment wounds, not only with our teens and our young adults, but within the whole family system. Mm-hmm. So it's bigger than just the person that's in front of us.
Yeah. And the teens and the young kids are the hard ones to treat. And I know when Stacy or I have my wife Stacy, like I said, personal friends of Kristen. When we have somebody that we can't take at Genesis House, it's we're 18 over, we go right to you, and you take care of everything for us, and it makes the admission easy, and we know they're getting really good treatment with Newport Academy, so we appreciate what you do too. So
right, I've always had the notion and the belief that communication is everything, especially with family members. If you don't have good lines of communication or good communication skills, you're going to have insurmountable roadblocks all along. Whether they're teenagers, young adults, into adulthood. There's another question here. It talks about parents communicate with members of ability to communicate with members of a generation who are absorbed in technology. I love this question.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about that for anybody who might be listening.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a big one. I get called in to speak on this often. Kids and their phones are almost linked genetically, right?
Mm-hmm.
The things that you can do with this is beyond what myself as a parent and any other parent has been exposed to. And so there's a few different capacities to this. First is you're going back to your question about creating connections. And how do you do that in a digital age? And so, of course, being able to communicate on a daily basis with your young adult, your teen, your support system is really important. It sets the foundation for some of the harder conversations that you may need to have if you're concerned about someone's mental well-being. Technology changes the way that kids view communication today. We didn't grow up with this technology. Our idea of what a friendship is and what a support system is very different than what our teens and our young adults are surrounded by through social media or gaming. Mm-hmm. And so these are really important things to put aside when you're having true, authentic communications with members of your family. So it used to be that families would gather around the dinner table. And now with two parents working or one parent household, or kids being driven to 15,000 different after-school activities.
Yeah.
That's a really difficult thing. And so one of the ways that I coach parents around this sort of no screen time is when you're driving in the car, because we're all driving them everywhere. Mm-hmm. When you're driving in the car, put your phones in the glove compartment or in the little passenger side armrest. And that way they're out of the car, and it allows you to even listen to music together, talk about the day. It gives you some time where there's nothing intervening with the direct contact of the people that are there. Mm-hmm. Finding little times like that, maybe it's before bed, before everybody turns in for the night. You have sort of a family time mm-hmm. that's really shared. There's no screens involved, no televisions, no computers, no phones. And it's really just that time to kind of set the tone for how was your day, asking those kinds of questions. And what these kind of interactions help is when there is issues that you're concerned about, it allows that playing field to be kind of level. So when you go in there, there's already existing communication.
Absolutely. And I travel a lot, and I go to a lot of restaurants, and the first thing you see when you walk in restaurants, everybody's heads down and they're on their phones just looking at, a husband and wife or family members just sitting down looking at their phones and not talking. I mean, it's crazy out there now. It's the communication is insane. My 17-year-old daughter, and you probably have the same problem with this. I could be texting the shit out of her and asking her questions. The second I go to call her, she puts you right into voicemail and doesn't even want to talk to you. So the communication is completely different now than it was when we were growing up. So that's we're going to take a quick break. I do want to ask you a question about process addictions after the break. So you think about that, and we'll be right back. We'll talk about process addictions.
Genesis House is a premier substance abuse and rehabilitation facility located in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. We have been providing the highest quality of addiction treatment since 1992 and are accredited by the Joint Commission. We offer a range of programs that include detox, residential treatment, dual diagnosis, a Christian track for people who want to incorporate their faith into treatment, a uniform services track, and we work with most major insurance carriers. Genesis House is led by a dedicated team of administrative and clinical professionals, and we stand on our commitment to excellence in recovery services. Contact us today to find out more about our program. Take the first step and call Genesis House at 800-737-0933 or visit us on the web at www.genesishouse.net. That's 800-737-0933 or www.genesishouse.net. Begin your journey to a long and successful recovery with Genesis House.
Hey, welcome back to friendsrecoverypodcast.com. And our guest, Kristen Wilson. Wonderful having you on the show today, Chris. You really, you're enlightening us. And as a therapist, you try to put on a good front. You can have your own problems. And when people come in, I work with 4 women actually, and I watch them, and I really admire their ability to, they're going through their own stuff as we're discussing things in the office, and then I watch them greet their clients. And what I've learned over the 10 years that some of these women have been in my office, they're always on, they're always pleasant, they're always giddy and laughing, and it just amazes me because it's an art. I guess it's an art, and I'm trying to learn. I'm a little old, and I guess you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm sitting there going, here's this asshole again. I can't believe this guy's coming again. But we wanted to talk about process addiction. And,
Sure.
And I think this is a topic that is unique and different.
And very, very not talked about a lot, I'm guessing, too, because process addiction, if you can explain it, is a variety of things that we may not even know we have that addiction. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So it's very similar to substance abuse or substance addiction in that it's utilized in a compulsive and obsessive way to escape something. And these process addictions can be anything from food related, so eating disorders, shopping addictions. I probably have that. Gaming addictions.
Did you give that to Stacy?
I may have some impact with that. Gaming addictions, technology addictions, sex addictions, love addictions, things that are not substance related, but are just as compulsively used to escape those not so nice feelings.
Well, escaping is one thing. My addiction now is running. I love running. I love being healthy and taking care of myself. But that's my escape. But what does it mean? Can it ruin somebody's life just like drugs and alcohol can? Can these process addictions do that?
Absolutely. So sometimes what's considered a good coping mechanism can turn into a process addiction based on the functionality of that person's life. So if your running took over to the point that you were losing relationships, you could no longer focus on anything, your job was sliding because all you were thinking about was the next run you were going on. Those types of things are when we start to see those coping mechanisms falling into what would be considered a process addiction.
Right. How about somebody that's like really trying hard to fight a malady, like we'll say drug addiction, and they become spiritual or they get into meditation, and all of a sudden that's all they talk about. They eat, sleep, breathe, dream in the shower when they're driving. All they want to think about or talk about is their new religion or hot yoga class, or the spiritual healer they're going to see.
Yeah.
I think you can. My father used to say, "Too much of a good thing isn't good for you." So, what do you think of that, Chris?
I agree. There's definitely a line between self-care and being self-indulgent. I think with the addiction, the piece is that it's uncontrollable. So if that person who's ingrained so deeply in spirituality or meditation is being controlled by that, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who got into treatment started getting into the rooms. Then he started getting into religion and spirituality, and he forgot about AA and NA and became this spiritual guru, and eventually ended up relapsing. Do you see that a lot too with? And I'm just talking about the spiritual, the religious piece, but any other pieces like is that common that somebody will do that? Is that a relapse kind of?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely addictions that could lead back to the primary addiction that the person was struggling with first. So if substance was an addiction and it hasn't been fully dealt with, or it's not being taken care of one day at a time, then it's very easy for that person to just transfer the addiction somewhere else. And when that's no longer working, go back to the original maladaptive coping mechanism.
So that's kind of setting up, or that's going to set them up to kind of fail and go back to their possibly using drugs again.
Absolutely. And I've seen it work the other way, where somebody enters something, especially with a lot of yoga teachers. Some of the founders of some of these practices of yoga, like Bikram, it was really at the end, he was really a sex addict and a love addict who was surrounded by women. And so it fed that addiction and ultimately led to the demise. But I think that it could work either way. It could reopen the door for an old addiction to be revisited, and it can also start a new one.
Now, is that something that you guys can treat at Newport Academy as the process addiction, or is that something that they have to go somewhere else? Or
yeah, so we do. We treat all mental health primary as well as substance abuse primary. So we can do all of that work on site. We see a lot of kids come in with technological issues. So whether it's been diagnosed as a gaming disorder, remains to be seen, but they are really addicted to their phones. And when they don't have access to them, the withdrawal symptoms are very similar to a substance withdrawal.
Wow, that's crazy.
So interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is. The one thing, you're a certified yoga teacher. We're going to shift gears a little bit here. Yoga, how does that play? I know at Genesis House we do a lot of yoga stuff. We have a fitness instructor. We do a lot of stuff as far as that goes. How does yoga play into all this? I mean, because you are a certified yoga teacher, so how do you see that helping people out also? All I hear is yoga, yoga, yoga. Everybody's talking about yoga. I did it once with Stacy and Sam, and that was it. I didn't do it anymore. It just did nothing for me, unfortunately.
Well, I'm going to invite both of you guys to come take my class.
Stacy will not listen to this. No, just kidding.
But I do think yoga is a great grounding force, especially for people who have been out of their bodies for a long time. And what I mean by that is so consumed by whatever the maladaptive behavior is that they've lost touch with their self, their spiritual self, what their beliefs are, their authentic self, the words that they speak. And I think yoga gives people a place to meditate on that.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, and it does.
Nope, go ahead.
And also the breathing techniques that are used in yoga can be really helpful in dealing with sort of riding the waves of emotions.
Sure.
So learning on a body level what happens when you start to feel anxious or you start to feel depressed. How do you breathe around that in order to get through that feeling?
Such a good point. And a lot of people don't realize, people that aren't in the field of recovery, that addiction is a threefold disease. It is a mental, physical, spiritual disease. And when I say spiritual, a lot of people can be turned off. They think the traditional, Christian God or whatever, but I don't mean that at all. I was brought up a Catholic, Irish Catholic, but more importantly, the spirituality I found in my own recovery is just who I'm praying. I don't know who I'm praying to, but I do what I was told to do or asked to do. And physically, mentally, spiritually, I healed, for over 30 years now, and it's not perfect. It's far from it, but I really do believe if you don't treat the spiritual part, the karma part, whatever you want to call it, you're letting the air out of the balloon. It's not going to be inflated to the degree where it's going to be, complete and helpful on a daily basis.
Absolutely, and I think with teenagers and young adults who oftentimes will come into treatment with the idea of there can't possibly be a higher power or a God, we try to start really simple. So what's a feeling or a bond that exists that you can't see, touch, taste, or smell? So we'll start with friendship, because everybody's felt that with someone, that connection outside of self. And then that can become the foundation of believing in something greater than self.
Mm-hmm. Super, yeah.
That's actually, I never heard that before.
Yeah, it's good.
That's a great way to start it out.
Whether you're having a friend or you can be a friend. Everybody tries. I think the commonality in a lot of these young adults that have the opioid addiction and stuff is that they come from a generation where it's all technology, and also a lot of my clients anyway have been very popular, whether they were athletes, whatever their vocation was. But I do have a few clients that are kind of like socially awkward. Very few, but they're socially awkward. They found drugs however they found them, but that was all of a sudden that was their new best friend. They didn't need friends. They didn't need anybody else, and it's kind of a sad situation.
Well, it sounds like everything we're talking about, and especially in the addiction world and the substance abuse world, is isolating. It brings us back to isolating, and that's not what we want to end up doing, is isolating. We don't want to be by ourselves, either gaming or using drugs or whatever the case may be.
We're social beings. We're social creatures, We're supposed to communicate and be social.
Absolutely.
Ed's not much of a social being over there, but he's been awfully quiet.
I don't even get on camera.
That's right. Well, nobody even knows what you look like.
And he's a handsome man, let me tell you that.
We're going to put a cardboard cutout of him.
I can't take my eyes off him, for God's sakes.
So, Kristen, we're coming to an end here. If you can kind of sum up just the whole experience that you have with young people and what you do and kind of this podcast, what would you say as far as how to maybe get help or how to sum it all up and maybe start living a healthier life?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you guys alluded to, we're creatures of connection. And I think if you're concerned about a family member or a friend, that's a trigger warning. So follow through on that. Don't be afraid to reach out. Asking someone for help is not a sign of weakness. It's helped all of us in our lives, and it's helped many people through the challenges that is being human. In terms of reaching out for me, I would love to talk to people, anyone who's concerned about a family member, a child, a young adult, with either mental health, substance abuse, or any process addiction issues. I'd be happy to be reached at my cell. I have it on me all the time, 856-912-5217. I'm also a Jersey girl.
All right.
And you can get a ton of resources on all of the things that we talked about today on newportacademy.com. We have a great website. Calling me or going on the website is not a commitment to come to treatment. We really are here just as resources for families, and we really want to ensure that people who are looking for help are able to get it.
Yeah, and it's a step in the right direction. Like Mike always says, give me a call, I'll talk to you. Call us at Genesis House, we'll talk to you. It doesn't mean, I like what you said, it's not a commitment, but it's the first step of maybe making that commitment.
Kristen Wilson, you are the real deal, and you did a great job today. And I didn't know Ed knew anybody as smart as you, as knowledgeable, and you're from New Jersey too. That's
right.
Even more amazing.
I'm from Jersey.
What more? Hey, listen, I surround myself with smart people who make me look good.
Obviously, you got me.
Kristen, thank you very much. It was a pleasure speaking to you on this level. We really appreciate it, and we'll definitely have you back one day to give us an update on the program and maybe some new stuff out there.
I'd be happy to. Thank you both for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kristen Wilson.
Thanks. Stay sober, everybody.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.